Hi, everyone. Welcome to our grad school one-on-one. Today, we will be talking about the application materials that you might find when applying to grad school. And I'm joined by my colleague. Before, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Gabriella. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions for the Center for Information Systems. And I'm really delighted to guide students through the application process wherever they might be interested in. So if you want, you can always connect us with us through LinkedIn and then ask us some questions, common questions about application processes. But Jill, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, hi, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining or watching in on our session. We're really excited to have you. My name is Jill Stagel. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Claremont Graduate University, and I represent the Art Business and Arts Management programs here at CGU. Real quick about me, I do have a couple master's degrees, so I do have experience applying to grad school personally. My background, I have a BFA in studio art and art history minor from the University of Northern Iowa. And I received my master's in art business and a master's of fine art in May 2020. So I'm definitely excited to let you know what I didn't do that you all should try to do. And, you know, some tips along the way. And I know Gabby has experience with it too. Real quick though too, before we dive into the presentation, just to let you know kind of what we're going to go through. We're going to start and let you know how you can kind of start and prepare for grad school, how you can find the perfect fit for a grad program that you're looking for, or to see if it even exists. I bet if you can dream it, it is out in the world somewhere. You just got to find it. We'll also walk through how to apply to graduate school and the materials that you'll need to prepare and things that you'll want to look out for in terms of dates if you need to take any extra tests for it. Producing strong written materials to go over the statement of purposes and the personal statements. And then we'll go over financial aid and funding and insider tips and helpful resources that Gabby and I have for you all while you're looking at schools and what you can expect or what you didn't even know would happen. But real quick, I do want to talk to you all about how to prepare for grad school and where you even start. When do you start preparing for grad school? So that's always the biggest question. Personally, I didn't actually start applying to grad schools until 6 years after I graduated my undergrad. I took a little bit of time off because I just knew that I wasn't ready to go to school yet. I needed a little bit of a break. So I decided to allow myself a little bit of time to take that, but it was perfect for me. So I actually started looking for grad programs 7 years before I applied because I looked for them in my senior year of college. I would definitely recommend if you are considering a degree after a bachelor's degree to start looking around your junior year. And I know other folks might say to look a little sooner if you want. If you start looking now, if you're in your senior year and your last year of college, you're fine. You're not too late to the game. You still have plenty of time to find what you need, but definitely looking a little bit sooner is a lot more helpful because you can start planning for any kind of dates you need to look out for. And we'll go into that when we talk about the materials you need for grad school. We'll also, it's just really kind of nice to see what kind of things you're going to need to have done, letters of recommendations, but it also allows you time to explore the programs that you're looking at in the different locations. And that goes into kind of deciding what kind of program and degree fits with your aspirations, because when you're looking at graduate programs, they're a lot more of a tailor to what you're wanting to do. They're more specialized programs. It's not too broad because you really focus on one aspect or area that you're really interested in looking in. And depending on what you want to specialize in, whether it's your research, your practice, if you're wanting to go on to a PhD and not stop at a master's program, definitely understanding the differences between a PhD program and a master's program and what that entails and what the big differences are is really a big kind of difference. And it's definitely a good thing to kind of think of too, because depending on what you want to do, you might not need a PhD. You might only need a master's degree, or you might want to have a PhD if you're wanting to teach into higher education, and kind of understanding what the differences are in those programs and what you're looking for career-wise and what your end goal is at one point is really important to understand for you to know what kind of programs you should be looking for. I always tell folks that where you're wanting to look for to do your grad program, you really want to be there in that location after you graduate. So if you're looking to be on the West Coast, if you want to be on the West Coast with me and Gabby, where it's always sunny and shiny and nice and warm, definitely look for a college on the West Coast. But if you want to end up somewhere in the Midwest or the East Coast, maybe not going to a school on the West Coast is such a great idea, because it does allow you time to network and build those connections while you're still in school. So definitely consider that. But we'll go on to finding your fit, and I'll pass it to Gabby.
Yes, so finding your fit is pretty, I'm trying to change the slide and it's not letting me. Okay, there we go. Finding your fit. So in graduate school, there's a difference between a master's and doctoral level works. Typically a master's, they're a lot quicker and it's technical based most of the time. There is research, but the focus is to get you in and out to maybe career advancement or to a PhD, or maybe just to become an expert in your field. A lot of students, may pursue their MBA and they just want a leg up when they're researching for jobs. And a doctoral degree can be a lot more focused on the research aspects of a certain specialty. So those are the differences. So when you're looking through all these different graduate programs, you want to look at specific faculty members. What are the research that they're doing? I always use the example of if you want to become a lawyer and you're checking grad schools and law schools, but yet you're interested in maybe environmental science and pursuing that as policy and defending that, but no one on the staff has that as a research topic or interest at all, you're not going to get the level of support that you need for the end goal in your life. So thinking about where you want to end up, I always tell students, maybe you even want to check LinkedIn for these people that you aspire to be, see where they went to school, see what they graduated in. So those are going to be some good tips as you continue on. A lot of students also focus on different things. Some students focus on, I just want to become an expert versus I want career advancement. So those two things can be also something that you want to look into. I know LinkedIn does a report called Emerging Job Report each year where they talk about the top fields, top earning fields, top jobs that people are getting. You might want to look at that because like Jill said, maybe a degree in something is not needed and you want to get maybe a more broad degree like an MBA, a business, but there are also some specialized degrees that you need to, if you want to become a doctor, there's a certain major that you might want to take. There's certain prerequisites that you might need. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Another tip is visiting the college campus. I can't tell you how many times a student might pick a school that is really cold and snows in the winter, and they're from California. And they don't like the food in the dining hall. And, it's really hard to walk from one place to the next. So finding the environment that fits you is also really important, and engaging with a school that might have the resources to support. One thing that I use is I'm a first generation student. So the support that I need versus someone that might not have that background could be a little bit different. So I'm going to want to focus on a school that has a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion aspects to their mission and their vision, and maybe even a support system and events to help me achieve my goals so that I actually don't drop out of grad school once I start. So those are important, and looking at the resources that are offered from a career advancement center to student life, the community, what clubs are on campus, all of those things really impact whether or not you're going to stay in school once you get in. And then a program or schedule and a timeline to the degree. So a lot of students sometimes it can be such a big daunting question of where do I even want to go, but also just the timeline on how long is this going to take me? So students that go directly into a PhD or a doctoral program without doing their master's, and yes, there are some like this in the United States where you can apply for, are typically a little bit more strict on research and refining what you want to do. So you already have to come in with a topic. So making sure you check the timeline early and how long that degree is actually going to take you to completion. And if you want to spend that much time, a lot of other schools too require you to be a full-time student. You cannot work, or you have to do the opportunities presented within that program. So check those things, because if you're thinking, I actually want to work full-time and go to school part-time, there's programs that might not be the best fit for you. And then we talked about student support and career trajectories. So now it's how do we get there? Once we find a program that we like, how do we apply to grad school? Jill, would you like to take this one, or would you like me to continue?
Oh, up to you. It's perfectly fine. I had it noted that you were talking about it, but I love talking about how to apply to grad school. So definitely when you are applying to grad school, you want to review the application and requirements. And this sounds super silly and kind of funny to say, but you want to follow the directions. The directions are there for a reason. The prompts are there for a reason. I know specifically for the program that I work with, for the statement of purpose, we have a specific prompt that we want people to answer, where it's more like general, where you can kind of answer the question in whatever way, but you do want to make sure that when you're writing your statement of purpose, that, or whatever the question that's asked of you, but I'll use the statement of purpose in this one, for this example, that you're answering the questions that they're asking, and that you're just following those simple directions, because there's a reason why we're asking it. There's a reason why we're asking for those deadlines, or asking for at least 2 letters of recommendation. Some programs do ask for specific recommenders, so you do want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. Sometimes they do request specifically, like if they want old faculty members or supervisors or what have you. So you do want to make sure that you're paying attention to those really small details that could be really big at the end of the day. You do definitely want to establish a timeline to assemble all of your application materials that we'll talk about in a couple slides here. Like we said before, when you're looking for grad programs, it's always start to looking a little bit sooner in the academic year. Just that way, if you do have timelines, if you have to apply by like January 15th or February 1st, you can start working on your application materials around the end of November, beginning of December. So you have time to write them and refine them and have people edit them if you need it to. But also that way you can talk to your letters of recommendation references that you're going to have, and then you can talk to them and see if they'd be willing to write these letters for you. One thing, and I know that Gabby will probably talk about this a little bit more too, is that you definitely want to be picky when you ask folks to write your letters. You don't want to ask just any professor you had to write you a recommendation. You want to definitely talk to someone that may have been a mentor, someone you had multiple classes with, that you have a good relationship with, that you can easily talk to, and that they know your career goals. But you definitely want to start doing your statement of purpose, your resume, and a writing sample for research purposes if you do have to submit that too. That way you can provide your recommenders with this information. That way, if they do ask, hey, can you send me your statement of purpose? Can you send me your portfolio or your updated resume? It gives them an idea of what you've done and how that can help benefit you for a graduate program. And you do want to give them time to write these letters. If you have a February 1st deadline, don't ask them on January 20th to write this letter. You do want to make sure that you're giving them that respect and time to do it. But that also goes to say you don't want to ask too early, because if you ask too early, then they might forget about it. So you definitely do want to at least give them, I would say, about 4 to 6 weeks advance notice. That way they know what you're wanting to do. And you also want to give yourself that time to write your personal statement or statement of purpose. You'll see either or a lot of times on graduate applications and PhD applications. Just that way you have time to write it, read it, reflect it, and also have someone else look at it for you. That way they can catch grammatical errors or things that don't flow as easily for you. But that way you can make sure that you're clearly answering whatever questions are in that prompt and you're following those directions to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward in your application. And one last thing too, you definitely want to double check all of your application materials before you hit submit, and you can make copies for yourself. I don't think you necessarily need to make copies right now because everything is digitized, but the way that I would keep myself organized when I applied to all the grad schools I applied to is I had everything in a separate folder for each school. But one thing you really want to double check is to make sure if you mention the school or location in your statement of purpose, you are mentioning the correct school or location in that specific statement of purpose. There was this one time that I was applying to grad school in 2016, and it was to a school in Pittsburgh. Well, I left the H off Pittsburgh, and it was the very last word of my very last sentence in my personal statement, and I will never forget it. Fun fact though, there is a Pittsburgh spelt with no H in the state of California. So I always said it was meant to be for me to be here. So I can't be mad about it, but definitely those small details can always end up being big things at the end of the day. So you definitely want to make sure you're putting your next foot forward or your best foot forward.
Yeah, to add to that, Jill, I think we review a lot of applications every semester, and we definitely encourage students to maybe, like Jill added, email your recommender some information about who you are. Just, even attach your transcript if it's an educational reference. So a professor that you had or a faculty member that you worked with, you're going to want to make sure you remind them about who you are. There's times where I read an application and sometimes they mention the wrong pronouns and they completely mess up who the student is actually, who they are. So just reminding them, attach your personal statement, but also reminding them of the work you did in their class if it's something that you want to just make sure that they know you really well and they can write a strong recommendation on your behalf. And that they don't have to come back and ask you for more information. If you just include it all in that initial email, they will be more inclined to write you a letter. Okay, so now we're at the fun part. All of the required and maybe even suggested materials that you can submit in a grad school application. So first, the online application is very important. And sometimes they offer fee waiver codes. Like I know for us, we offer a fee waiver code if you watch an event, if you come to an event or you schedule a meeting with an academic advisor. Or admission representative advisor. So these are all the ways that you can actually see if you can get an application fee waiver code. There's also need-based fee waiver codes and maybe even talking to a faculty member on the staff and seeing if they match your interest and they want you to really apply. So you're going to want to do your research. Another thing is that really, really important is deadlines. Sometimes the application and the supporting materials are on separate deadlines. There's even maybe a separate application for the fellowship aspect. So making sure you're getting the right grants and aid to pursue this degree. There could be a separate application process for that depending on the school. So write down every school that you want to apply to, all the applications and all the deadlines. I can't tell you how many times a student will come to me and say, oh my goodness, I totally forgot, but I had to do one thing. I had to submit my statement of purpose by this day, and now they have to wait a whole nother year to apply. So check those things early. And like Jill said, if you're a senior, you're not too late. Don't worry, but you might have to just have extra time to prepare for when that application cycle does open for you. Another thing is if you are still in the works with your resume, visit a career development office at your school to perfect that, because even voluntary experience works when you're putting it on a resume and you want to highlight that. But a lot of schools also will be very strict on or specific about what they want to see on a resume. Maybe only work that directly correlates to the program that you are applying for. So you want to check those things. What are the requirements for all the application materials so that you're following the correct font for your personal statement and the correct page count? I know people that will throw out an application if they didn't follow the directions. So just be very meticulous. Like Jill recommended, put everything in a folder. Make sure you write everything. If you misspell the school's name, it's not the end of the world. Don't worry, but you can maybe do a follow-up email to say that you noticed it after you submitted it. And maybe you can even submit an updated copy before they review your application. Another thing, these are very program-specific materials. Sometimes they require the GRE or GMAT, MCAT, LSAT, depending on what you're applying for. Letters of recommendation, how many do you have to submit? Do they have to be an educational or professional reference? Statement of purpose, believe it or not, a lot of PhD applications require a statement of purpose and a personal statement. And you're thinking, okay, what's the difference? Well, statement of purpose is highlighting what you want to achieve and what you hope to achieve while you're there. And a personal statement is something where before you went to grad school, who are you? What did you do? And how did you arrive at this conclusion? So sometimes there's both, and you were probably thinking like, how does that even make sense? So just make sure you check the prompts and that you're giving the school exactly what they're asking for. And if you're not sure, there's an admission representative like Jill and I to help you through that process. That's why they exist. So you can ask them all your questions and get all the resources and support before even applying. Creative samples are very common with liberal arts degrees. So anything, even Jill had to do a arts portfolio. So there's different things, or well, a creative portfolio. Is that correct, Jill?
So it's called a portfolio. Yeah. So
portfolio, yes.
Yeah. So you're very close. So depending on what degree you're pursuing. So if you're doing like a studio art or a fine arts degree, then you have to submit a portfolio. If you're looking to do something with creative writing, then you'll most likely have to submit a creative writing sample of some sort of writing, format. So if you're doing music, dance, theater, anything like that, You might have to submit a video of a past performance that you've done, as well as audition as well. So that's where the audition comes in for that underneath creative sample. Some programs, like the programs that I work with here with our business and management programs, do require an interview prior to be admitted to the program. It's part of the application process. And I do know that here that our MBA programs also require that too. But don't sweat interviews. It's just a way for people to get to know you a little bit better. That's what I always tell folks. Like, we're not going to ask you trick questions, scenario questions you might get in a job interview. It's more a better way for us to get to know you and understand. And if you're nervous about it, ask us. We'd be happy to tell you or help you prepare for it if there is something that you need to prepare for. But don't sweat the small stuff. That'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think also interviews are helpful for faculty to see if your interests align with theirs. Like you said, if you're interested in something completely different, maybe they're not going to be able to help you and you need to explore other programs. So there's always a purpose to why they're asking for all of these things. And it's definitely to see who are you as an individual and what did you achieve. And also one more thing about official transcripts, and my light just went off, excuse me. It's like motion detected. Nope. Okay, there we go. Official transcripts. Some schools require official transcripts, like USC would require official transcripts at the time of applying, versus us, we will actually take sometimes a copy if it's close to the deadline, and then you can submit the official ones later. So just making sure you know what all the rules are so that you don't miss an opportunity, because if you don't have all your application materials in, then you won't get reviewed, and that's really important. Okay, so producing strong written materials. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the differences between the personal statement and the statement of purpose, or the personal statement of purpose and personal statement, and what those differences are. Some schools require one or the other, or some schools require both of them. So it's very important to see which one are they asking for and reading the prompt. I mean, I think this is the one thing that's stressed all the time, because even now I still get applications where they didn't have someone proofread it, or, and something just that small can tell faculty, maybe this person doesn't really care that much, when that's not the reality. So just checking it and making sure that you have a couple people proofread it. I would suggest at least 2 to 3 people that aren't your family in professional or educational that can really go through that statement of purpose with you. Even a mentor. I used to work with a program called Uncommon Good, where we would mentor people to apply to college that come from disadvantaged backgrounds. And so that was just a way for us to look and give people the resources and support. But there's probably other areas, maybe even at your school, that will help you refine a personal statement or a statement of purpose. The one common things that you want to focus on is why this school or program. A lot of the times faculty want to see something specific about that degree, but also about that school. So mentioning maybe even just in one paragraph. It's okay to have a generic one where you're using for multiple schools, but you should have a paragraph that you're constantly changing depending on the program and depending on the school. So you're actually mentioning specifics. Like I always tell my students for the Center for Information, check the website, look at a faculty member and their research, and then write one sentence or 2 or a couple on why you feel like this school is a good fit and incorporate them into it. And what do you hope to learn from them? What do you hope to achieve while you're here? What work do you want to do in one of our research labs? So you want to make it very specific to that school. Again, it's okay to have a generic one, but just making sure that you make it specific. How are your lived experiences, educational directories? Well, there's a lot of freedom sometimes in the way that you can write something. Like I know for my school, the prompt is very generic. So students can either write about their passion for their work, to their personal experiences, and then why they want to come here. So there's a lot of freedom. And then there's a section on here where we tie up all the loose ends. So they're just giving you a outline, maybe outline your personal statement and make sure that you tie it all together. Because I've read personal statements where one thing is talking about one thing and then another thing and then personal, and then it doesn't tie in nicely. So just, following intro and conclusion, that is connecting, and then having the meat or I call it the meat of your paper being concise as well. Because sometimes, even ours is 2 to 3 pages. So you're going to fit a lot of information in 2 to 3 pages. The way that you structure that is important. Jill, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have a writing center on campus, highly would recommend you reaching out to them because that's what they're there for. They want to help you with your writing, and they're not going to tell you no, especially if they know that you are looking at applying to an advanced degree. So definitely would recommend that you take advantage of a writing center. If you do have a writing center, definitely talk to your mentor too. If you're already sending them a copy, ask them for feedback if they have time, and depending on the relationship that you have with those folks. Because I know with mine, since I applied so late after graduating my undergrad, I had a really great relationship with them, that even before I started applying for programs, I gave them a call and I said, hey, how's it going? It's me. They knew that I was going to be applying for graduate programs at some point because I mentioned it before I graduated, and they just let me know what they all needed. But they were also very much like, let me know if you need anything, would love to read over your materials to help give you feedback. So definitely leverage your mentors and the folks that you have for your professors and the folks around you, and especially the folks in the career offices. We just want to see you succeed and, just help edify you and build you up. Going on to with the loose ends that Gabby was talking about, one thing that I always tell folks too is that if you feel like there's a portion in your application that might not be as strong, some folks that I talk to are concerned, my GPA wasn't as great as I wanted it to be, or like I don't have the kind of work experience I need in order to like actually show that I'm interested in the arts or at medicine or IST, like what do I do? How can I show people that that's my passion? Your statement of purpose or personal statement is the perfect place where you can do that. And if you also want another set of eyes, I know I always offer folks that are submitting personal statements or statement of purposes to me, go ahead and send it to me. I'm not going to give you like edited feedback where I'm going to say you need to change this specific section, but I would be happy to just give you general feedback and let you know if I feel you need to expand on something or if you can cut something out. But definitely lean on the folks that you're talking to and the folks that work there, because we definitely want to see you succeed and help you out where you can and just help you feel confident about what you're doing, because obviously you're applying to grad school, you're already doing amazing. So you just have to keep going and just keep tracking on. But yeah, now let's talk about money, because that's really the fun stuff to talk about, right? So we're first going to talk about financial aid literacy, just more about like what different kinds of funding can you get when you're in grad school or getting a PhD or, something that's a higher degree. So a lot of times you'll see these pop up for funding: fellowships or scholarships, grants, assistantships, on-campus employment. You'll also see the word stipend. Definitely one important thing to know is when you're looking at a college or a university, see what kind of funding they have and what kind of language we use. At CGU, we use the word fellowship and not scholarship. But the fellowships are like scholarships. We don't ask you to do a TA in exchange for a fellowship for the department fellowships. We just ask you to come to class and do a good job, is how I tell people these fellowships are. They're very much like a scholarship. Other fellowships that other universities offer might have a TA or a teaching assistantship or a graduate assistantship attached to it. So definitely talk to your admissions representative. A lot of times you'll see it on the website and it'll notate on there, hey, if you get awarded a fellowship, it's pretty awesome, but you're also going to have to work X amount of hours a week or do a teaching assistantship with it. So definitely read that and kind of see what's going on with it, but also ask the admissions representative if you have questions or if you need any kind of clarification, because even if it says, hey, we have an assistantship available, knowing how many hours a week is that, what kind of assistantship is it? Is it like a lab assistantship? Is it working in an office? Is it doing grading papers? Kind of give yourself more information that you think you'll need. Just that way, if you do get an assistantship, you know exactly what that entails. Grants, I highly recommend that you look into grants and scholarships right now when you're looking at schools, not just within the universities you're looking at, but just also external grants and scholarships that are out there in the world, because there are a lot out there and there's a lot of people that don't take advantage of them. So if you're able to take the time to apply for those while you're applying to schools, you'll set yourself up to be really successful too, especially financially in the end. That way, when you do start a program, you don't necessarily have to stress out of, how am I going to pay my rent and buy groceries, or how am I going to pay my tuition? So I would definitely take a look on that. The one that's not on here is stipend. Stipends usually cover living expenses. Some programs do offer stipends. Most of the time you'll see a stipend offered in PhD programs, not so much in a master's program, but definitely take a look at that. And if you're curious if the school offers a stipend and you just can't find it on the website, just ask, we'll tell you. I know at CGU, we really don't offer stipends, but other programs might also offer a stipend, at least not for the master's programs. And on-campus employment is also a really great way for you to make money or supplement any kind of income that you'll need. A lot of times they're part-time positions. There's also federal work study positions that you can get that qualify for on-campus employment. So definitely just take a look at all of those, and you can always ask too, where you can find on-campus employment positions. I know for us at CGU, we have a platform called Handshake that people use to find on-campus employment and internship opportunities. So usually you'll be able to see that on a program's website or a university's website, but definitely take a look at that. But looking at other sources of aid and talking about FAFSA, because who doesn't love filling out the FAFSA? I don't. I'm super excited. I don't have to anymore. I don't know about you, but it's really important to do though, because not only does it help people see if you're eligible for federal loans, if you're interested in taking out any kind of federal student loans, but it shows financial need if you're needing any kind of additional funding. They have that expected family income, or EFC, at the very end after you finish filling out a FAFSA. And that kind of lets the university know what kind of need you have. So if there's need-based fellowships or need-based scholarships, that definitely lets the financial aid office know, okay, this person is in need of a little bit more money because you fill out all the information that's in the FAFSA. So I definitely would take the time to fill that out. October 1st, you can start filling it out. What I would recommend doing is that when you are filling it out, if you're looking to apply to multiple programs, put all the schools on there. I'm pretty sure you can put up to 10 schools on the FAFSA, and they don't do anything with your FAFSA unless you actually accept any kind of offer of admission with it. Otherwise, it just sits there. There's also, through the FAFSA, it shows if you're eligible for federal work study. So that way, if you do qualify for federal work study, that can allot you a part-time position in schools. There's also employer tuition remission benefits. So if you work somewhere and they'll also pay for you to get a higher education degree, that's always fantastic. If you or your parents have served in the service, there's also veterans benefits that you can also qualify for in a lot of cases. And then we talked about external scholarships and fellowships. But then there's also private loans. So if you don't want to, or you're not eligible to take out any kind of federal loans, you always can look at private loans too. A lot of times those interest rates can be a little bit higher, but to each their own. It's perfectly fine. It's definitely up to you and what you feel is best for your education and what you want to do. But the sooner you can look at external funding, I can't stress that enough, the better. That way you don't have to worry about taking out as much loans, hopefully, if that's something that you're looking at doing to fund your education.
I was just about to add to that and say that, Jill. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah. For the research assistantships and teaching assistantships, there are different kinds, and sometimes they're connected to your admission and sometimes they're not, like Jill suggested. But it's really important to look at the opportunities through the faculty members that can be presented, because I know a lot of students, especially in our data science concentration here, have already a job lined up by the time they graduate from the master's program, because it's such an intense field. And because we're a small school and this faculty to student ratio is like 8-to-1, if the faculty member sees that you're progressing at a great rate, maybe they'll suggest you to a company if the job opens up. So it's really important that maybe even if the opportunities don't present themselves within that master's or PhD level program, that they'd be able to get you to where you want to be when you do graduate. Okay, insider tips and helpful resources. So this is a good section to think about Okay, I found a school that I might be interested in. What now? Connect with the current students, connect with the faculty members, talk to your admission representative about connecting with them first. I know a lot of the times my faculty members will not talk to anybody unless I connect them with that person. So it's very important to find out, how does this university work and how am I going to optimize my outreach? So that's really important. And then another is observe a class, maybe sit in. If you find a faculty member that you really are drawn to, see if they're doing any class previews. So the best way to find out all this information is to talk to an admission representative. And then faculty research, see if anything on the website aligns with your interest. And if you need to discuss your research goals with someone, that's why Jill and I are here, and we can connect you to the correct faculty member, because sometimes the websites aren't that updated. And I know students have reached out to me and I'm actually like, no, actually this professor would speak more to your interests. Let me connect you. They're doing a research project right now, or they're doing a lab, or they're connected with a company and they're doing something, so that it's very current. So that's why it's important to kind of connect with someone about it. And this is the slide. Jill, go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing that I think is also really fantastic for folks to do in terms of what should you do while looking for a grad program is when Gabby was mentioning too, you know, connect with us on LinkedIn, but also search LinkedIn for alumni of the school that you're going to, or the program that you're looking in. See what they've done after they graduated, see what they did before they graduated for experience. So that way, if you're wanting to take a little bit of a break before actually attending grad school, you can see what kind of experience they had, but you can also connect with them. I can't tell you how many times I've talked with prospective students and they're like, yeah, you know, I Googled, you know, on LinkedIn, I searched on LinkedIn, you know, alumni in your program and the program I'm looking at, and I sent them a message and they actually talked to me and told me about their experience. A lot of alumni love to talk about their experiences, especially if they had a really good experience. So definitely take advantage of alumni and connecting with folks, especially if you have the time to do it. It might take a little bit of time for them to get back to you. So if you don't hear an answer right away, don't worry, it's perfectly fine. But it definitely gives you an idea of, you know, am I going to like this program? Is it something that's a great fit for me? You're in a job that I want to do. What do you recommend? Should I even go get this degree, or should I just jump in? Or, you know, it definitely is a great way for you to learn more about the institution and program you're looking at, because especially with alumni, they'll definitely let you know what they liked, love, and would tell you not to even do. So
Yes, that's good. Yes, good tips from the people who went through it. Just like Jill. I'm actually a current student here, and Jill actually went through the program. So these are good people to kind of connect with and see, okay, what was your experience like? What was the most daunting part of grad school for you? What is something that you don't have to worry about anymore? I always tell people the hardest part is just starting your first class. Like once you get through it, you were like, why did it take me? Because I was out of school like Jill for a while. So I always thought, why did it take me so long? Why was I so nervous? I should have done this sooner. And those are the things that I wished I did, as I checked into those resources before I started to work and have, you know, 3 or 4 jobs before finding my fit. Okay, so this is the slide that I love talking about because it's a little bit more CGU specific. So we specialize in what we call this transdisciplinary approach. So that means that instead of creating a student that is very focused in one area, we encourage students to reach across disciplines to actually come up with an academic plan. So that means, for example, in the Center for Information Systems, I might have a student in the PhD in Information Systems and they're also doing an MBA. Or maybe they came from a completely different background and they're going into IST. Maybe they were in politics, psychology, economics, public health, and then now they're wanting to do a different degree, or they want to capitalize on that and do some research. So a really common one is community and global health students may want to use technology to impact the field, creating a health app. So that's what our specialty is in. And even Jill's programs are interfield within themselves. So they have a business component, an arts component. And I'll let her talk about it, just highlight a little bit more about what her programs entail. But we specialize in this intimate learning environment where your professors know when you're missing and they check in with you and they offer you positions if you built that relationship, because grad school is a lot about networking. So we try to make those opportunities. Also going back to this idea of checking resources that the school offers. We offer the Claremont College's resources like the library, the health center, and maybe some dining halls and gyms. But there's also some very specific resources for graduate level work only, because we only offer master's degrees and doctoral degrees. We offer students this graduate level resources and support that they might need going through their program. For example, like a career development office focused in advanced degree placement. We also have our student life and diversity. I always tell students that the best part about grad school is that all of our events have alcohol. So, because we're all older. So there's that level. And we also have the Center for Writing and Rhetoric. We know grad school produce a lot of papers, and sometimes, like Jill and I, we forgot how to cite because we've been out of school for so long. I forgot that I used to do MLA format, and all these papers that they're trying to make me write in education is either Chicago or APA. How do I know what to do at this level? So I need to go back to the Center for Writing and Rhetoric. And then also we have, I'm forgetting one, Preparing Future Faculty, which is one of our most popular. Even at the master's level, you can take a Preparing Future Faculty certificate program, and also they have one-off ad hoc events where you can join and look at the opportunities that present themselves and see if you really do want to become a professor, because it's a long road, especially when you're starting with your master's, and then you're like, oh, I still have to do my PhD, maybe, and then I can get the dream job. See early if that's even something that you want to start and create that a momentum and road for yourself. And then we're nationally recognized. Some of our programs are well ranked. And so you're going to want to check those things with other universities that you're interested in too. Is this a good fit? And then practice-based learning. I always tell people the degrees that you take here are more project-based and research-based. So they are going to prepare you for those technical skills that you might need, especially at the master's level. And then we have a vast alumni network. Even in my smaller department, I have over 650 registered alumni with job titles and updates and salary reports. So it's really important for you to check those and just ask your admission representative, like, how often do your students go on to get a good job, or where have your alumni been placed? And then we are graduate school, like I mentioned, all the time. So that means we only offer graduate level degrees and programs. And then we have a very energetic location. We're 35 miles out from Los Angeles. We're in a little quiet college town, and we actually share our location with the Claremont colleges. That's Pitzer, Pomona, Harvey Mudd, Scripps, and we share different things. Like mentioned, I was telling you about the library. We have one of the largest third private collections in Southern California. So that's really impressive. And a lot of students have those resources virtually as well as in person. And then also it's a great building to be inside. I always tell students you could take your laptop and go on a treadmill. So that's nice because I don't have that at home. Jill, did you want to add to any of this on this last slide, the CGU slide?
Yeah, we're really fun to be around also. I think one of my favorite things, honestly, as an alumni of CGU, not just working here, I mean, I obviously love the institution enough that I came back to work here for the institution because it is a very family-centric location. Someone asked me today, what's the campus culture of CGU? And I really think that it's very family-centered. It is like a little big family here, where you go into the department, people know who you are, people know your name, they ask you how you're doing. But they also ask how your family's doing if you have family. I brought my daughter to class numerous times when I was a student, when I wasn't able to find childcare. My professors didn't care, and she even participated in a lot of the lectures, which was also hilarious for a 7-year-old child to participate in a room full of, 20 plus people over between the ages of 20 and, 70 years old. But I think, definitely our programs are really great to look at. So if it is something that you are interested in talking to us about, we are really close to Los Angeles. I always tell people my favorite thing about being in Claremont and living around Claremont is that I can choose when I want to be in the big city around the hustle and bustle. That way I am able to come where it's a little quieter, especially since I'm not from here. I do love cities though. So being in somewhere smaller than Claremont would not be okay for me. But we do have a Metrolink station that does lead you right into the heart of downtown Los Angeles in Union Station, and you can use the subways to get to a lot of places. But our alumni network runs really deep. I think at CGU alone, we have 20,000 plus alumni. And we do have a really great alumni network where they do try to do events and activities. And it's like I said before, if you want to talk to alumni about their experiences, let us know. If you're looking at other programs, ask them if you can talk to alumni, ask them if you can talk to current students, ask them if you can talk to faculty, because that's really going to give you an idea of, is that school a perfect fit? I know here at CGU, that is something that we do pride ourselves on. We do want people to talk to our folks and see if these programs are a perfect fit, because we don't want you to come here on false pretenses. We want you to be confident, like, hey, Claremont Graduate University is definitely the right place for me. It's somewhere that I want to be around. And the people are pretty great. They have really good coffee. So side note too, a lot of movies are filmed on the Claremont campuses. So if you want to talk about that, definitely send me a message later and I'd love to talk to you about it. But there definitely is a really great place. Definitely have loved talking to you all today about graduate school and applying to graduate school. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions at any time, even if you're not interested in our program specifically, but you have questions about, hey, I have questions about how to apply to grad school, or I have more questions about what I should be doing. What should I even be looking at? Please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you, love to let you know more about our journeys if you want, and just kind of help support you through your journey to find this perfect fit, because applying to grad school is stressful. So any way we can help you, definitely want to.
Yes, and we will also be sharing this information with Michelle and James. So if you want to reach out to them directly for a interest form or just our emails, they'll also have them available for you to connect with us. Okay, thank you.
Was there any questions that you had, Michelle or James, that you want us to answer or touch upon or expand on while you have us here? Because we do have about 9 or 10 minutes to give you. I know I have a little bit of time, so I'd be happy to answer questions that you feel your students might want to know more about that we might want to expand on.
I do have one question for either of you. I have received some questions from students of specific places to look for scholarships. I know they need to look at each graduate program to see what scholarships are available for that school, but is there a general place they can go that you would recommend?
Yeah, this is actually a great question. So as Jill mentioned, when you are in grad school, you are technically in a field. So your master's or doctorate is going to be in a field. So when you're looking into that field, that's where you're going to want to narrow it down. So I have a great careeronestop.org is one of my favorites because it gives you a vast database of scholarships that are very reliable. But it could be very daunting. So you want to make sure that when you're researching within your field, you can narrow it down because there's just so many. There's so many. And then you can narrow it down to that field and think, okay, are there any that can apply to me and that fit the criteria of which I'm looking at? So I know some students are like, I really just don't want to write an essay, even though that's very common. There are certain criteria you can just submit an application form for. Others are like, I'm actually really good at writing. I'm doing my MA in English right now, so I'm going to be looking. But the question about fellowships and scholarships and grants, and it never ends. So this is a journey. Even at the application stage, you can start it and you won't be done until you graduate. So people are constantly searching. Even within my doctoral students, they're constantly working with the professor to submit grants, proposals, and go to conferences. And sometimes those include either getting funded to put your research out there or a specific grant that might grant you a little bit more time on and resources for your research projects.
I also put in a link that links to our external funding resources site on our on the CGU webpage for financial aid. It's actually a great resource, and I send this to prospective students all the time, and they actually just renovated it a little bit, where it's broken up too by doctoral students, master's students, and international folks that are looking for funding, because a lot of folks that are international are like, I'm an international student, so a lot of the funding that you offer, I might not qualify for depending on what it is. And I always direct them here and I say, look early because you don't want to miss the deadlines. One thing that is great too is that we actually have them broken down by type. So if you're in arts and humanities, if you click external funding for masters, it has it broken down by arts and humanities, business, history. It breaks down by research interest, which is really fantastic. And there's a lot of different resources in there for folks to look at. Definitely isn't a fun time applying for scholarships. If anybody remembers applying for them while they're going into their undergrad, it's an hours-long process, probably for some of the applications to get them done. You don't get a lot of responses from some, but the more you put out there, the more chances you get of getting something. And if you can get more than one, it takes at least that load off of your back that you don't have to worry about X amount of money. But the sooner you can look at that, if you can look at it in the same time that you're looking at graduate programs and applying, you're just going to set yourself up for more success. And the nice thing, fun fact, depending on the school you go to, I know at CGU, once you're a student, if there are fellowship or scholarship or grant opportunities, they send them out to the students. You might not qualify for it, but they let you know, hey, there's this research fellowship or something going on. This is the opportunity. It's on the student to take advantage of that and to fill out the application, but they at least try to find different ways to help students out there.
Yeah. So according to our financial aid office, who gave me this onestopshop.org resource, you should be applying to one scholarship a month. So that's their timeline that some would suggest. Obviously, if you're not doing this, I didn't do it, it's fine. But graduate school and investing in your future is just a different game. So you want to make sure that you check those early and then see what you do qualify for and fit the criteria, and just want to get your name out there and try.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
Yeah. And I do want to acknowledge you recommending for students to turn in their letter of recommendations early, or letting their professors or others, their recommenders, know in advance when to submit those letters, because I do have a horror story of my own. When I was applying to graduate schools, I had my 3 recommenders. And the 2 out of the 3 submitted them within the first month, but my 3rd was a former boss. And I requested the recommendation, I think at the beginning of the summer. And after the first month, I didn't hear anything back. I was like, okay. So I contacted him and reminded him nearly 2 weeks after that, like on a rotating basis. And I did not get his letter of recommendation before the application deadline. And because get that recommendation, I had to wait a whole other year before I started graduate school.
No.
So
that is a horror story. And if we notice that students are in this predicament, we do suggest asking someone else. If they're giving you the runaround or saying, I'll have it to you at the end of the week, and they don't, who else can you put on your list to ask to present you with the letter? Because that is a horror story. I'm like,
at that point, I didn't have anybody else to recommend for me, just because I had a career for like 10 years at that point. And then I didn't know any of my other professors because I'd been out of school for so long. So I was kind of in that really weird gray area, right? Nobody else to ask, but that's great. That's a great tip.
Yeah, you can also, this is very CGU specific, so take this as it may, but you might want to talk to your admission representative at the school that you're applying for and see if they're, tell them that situation. I've been asking this person for 3 months and they haven't gotten back to me. And there's, I've been out of exactly your situation 10 years, because I work with a lot of industry professionals that have been in the field for 10 to 15 years. Sometimes we do, depending on the resume, waive a letter for them. So that's something that you might want to check in. It's not very common right when you're coming out of undergrad. Typically you need to submit the required documents, but if you are later in your career and you talk to someone, you might want to recommend that they talk to an admission representative to see what resources are available from that point.
Yeah. Another thing to point out too, when you do letters or you're doing official transcripts, you don't want to, me, myself, doesn't want to send that to the university as an applicant. If your recommender isn't able to access the link for whatever reason that it's sent to them, definitely talk to your admissions rep. But a lot of times the recommender can directly email the admissions rep a copy of the letter, but it can't come from the applicant. Same with the transcripts. Like if you're doing unofficial transcripts, totally fine if they're official, can't come from the applicant. Not that we don't trust people, but we don't trust people, I guess. What can I say? But it's kind of a good thing to keep in mind too, because sometimes folks might lose the links. They can't find the links. It's not the end all be all. That's when you just contact the admissions rep and say, hey, we can't find this. Can they just email you directly? And if not, they'll let you know who they can send the letter to.
Great
Also
point,
a really good
Jill.
question.
Perfect. Great tips. James, did you have any questions?
I have just a quick couple. So for your programs, do you have the same deadlines for all, or do each of them have different deadline dates?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So all of our programs do have the same deadline dates, but it depends though too. If you're applying for PhD, sometimes they do ask for different deadlines. If I remember right, Gabby, is that right?
Yeah, it depends on the department. We'll have the general admission application deadline, but you're going to want to check. Typically we're a rolling admission, but there are certain perks to applying by the priority deadlines, like additional funding opportunities, special admitted student events, meeting the president. There's all these different things, talking to an alumni panels, students, connecting with a professor that might not be available if you apply too late.
Yeah.
Sometimes a student will apply a week before classes and say, I need more funding. And I'm like, you're going to have to wait till next semester because I don't have anything else. So that is the perk or benefit to actually applying by the deadlines suggested.
Yeah.
We would be happy to take anybody that's probably on the later game, but they probably have more resources when they apply earlier, and they won't put so much pressure on everyone else, like the financial aid office, to go over those opportunities. Because sometimes when you're getting admitted a little late in the game, then you have to make an appointment. There it is again. You have to make an appointment with everybody to make sure you're making the right choice at the end of the day and review your financial package. I think even Jill and I, we do financial advising appointments right after you receive your letter. See if those resources are available at other schools. Yeah, but great question. So November 1st is our priority deadline for spring 2022. And then for summer and fall of 2022, it's February 1st. And that would be our priority deadlines.
Yeah. For international folks too, the deadlines are a little bit earlier than the final deadline. But if you do have international students, or you are an international student, definitely applying earlier than so close to that deadline is good. Just that way you have time to do any kind of paperwork with visa processing, or if you have to provide additional documentation to the university, if there's any kind of transferring of visa paperwork that has to be done. Definitely the earlier you can apply, the better, because the financial perks are good, but that way you're not stressing yourself out to try to get everything in by the final deadline when classes start. The less stress you can do, the better.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to also, with the priority deadline, know that when you're a senior coming out, you can actually apply to college once you register for your last semester of classes. So for example, like if you want to let's say you're graduating in May 2022, but you want to attend fall 2022, you need to start the application earlier if you want to do that. It's not going to be, let me wait till I graduate and then I can look at my opportunities, because sometimes you'll have to wait a whole nother year for you to do that. And that's not sometimes ideal for students who want to do it back to back. So just, knowing that.
It's a really great question.
Sorry, I know we're almost out of time. For your how long usually is your review process for your applicants?
It definitely goes by department. I would say some departments do get the decisions out quicker. I do know that we do try to get an admission decision, within, I think our director of admissions said about 3 to 4 weeks after the application is all the materials are submitted, because we can't start reviewing an application for admission until all the materials are submitted. So not just the online application, but also letter, statement of purpose, writing sample, whatever department dependent thing you're asking for. I know with my programs, with our business and management programs, we do try to get a decision out to folks sooner than later, not because we're just not reading the information and letting anyone in, but because we know that applying to school is stressful, and the more time you have to plan on coming to school and to get your ducks in order and all of your plans done, we know it's the better. I think we do try, in my experience as a student applying to the program, I completed my application, had an interview, and was accepted within 2 weeks, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I tried to give the same experience to all of my students, because I was like, listen, I loved it. It brought me such joy. So if I can do that for other people, I want to do it. But it does make it easier, because I know some institutions do say 4 to 6 weeks until we get you an admission decision. And that can be stressful too, because what if it takes 7?
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
Yeah, I would say a typical timeline is about 3 to 6 weeks for graduate school. For us, we try to do it in 3. I know that typically in my department, we're not getting decisions out as quickly as Jill has experienced, but it also depends on the time of the year, right? So if you're a student's applying in the summer, I can typically get that turned around sooner, but during the priority deadline process, a lot of students are applying, so my faculty have to get through a lot of applications. So it might take a little longer.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And if folks are looking at applying to other schools, these are also great questions to ask the admissions representative too, because sometimes it's not outlined in detail. Once you submit everything, it doesn't give you a note saying, oh, we'll let you know in this much all the time. So if you're concerned, you can just ask, and it's okay to check in every once in a while. But if you don't hear something, don't call every week. It's perfectly fine. It'll be okay. I promise. There's a lot of people applying to grad school, but you did it. You at least applied, so it's all right. You'll get your answers.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.